It took us 30 minutes to do what usually takes 2 months and costs like 20k euro in France.
Hi guys, welcome back to Value.Tokenized. Today we're talking real estate tokenization in France with Bilal El Alamy, co-founder at EquiSafe, who just recently did the first real estate tokenization deal in France. We're talking about the incentives. Why should you tokenize real estate? What are the specifics of doing this in France, and what we should look forward to the next year? Hey, so hi Bilal, thank you so much for being with us today at Value.Tokenized. And you're a co-founder of EquiSafe, who just this June completed the first sale of real estate on blockchain. In other words, tokenized real estate located in France for 6.5 million euro. Can you tell us what was the main incentive here and what opportunities this first pilot opens for real estate industry in general?
Hello, girls. Thank you for receiving me. Yeah, sure. So the goal was really simple on this transaction. It was to test the product. Let's be honest, tokenization is like very experimental at this stage. Very few players doing very few use cases. So the idea was to take one step at a time. And so we found this asset. So, and the opportunities for the real estate industry are simple. Now that we've done it for real, we can compare the legacy, the cost structure of the legacy framework and the digital framework. And I'm going to give you an example. It took us 30 minutes to do what usually takes 2 months and costs like 20k euro in France. And it cost us only 150 euro using blockchain in 30 minutes. And then the next day of the tokenization, it took us 1 minute with a cost of 6 cents to send the securities to the issuers. In the legacy framework, this takes 2 days, and it's in the hand of the bank. So here's the differences. So this was a real world test to find those answers. And why? What brings this value? These values comes from. So the blockchain is a 10 years old ledger with 3 major advantages that we're using. The first one is the timestamping, and we're going to go through in the timestamping later if we talk about regulatory frameworks. The second one is the security and the immutability of the information that is registered in the blockchain, and this is very valuable. Specifically for the data. And then the last one is the programmability of the blockchain. And no database had those 3 value proposition. And using these 3 value proposition, we ended up doing that with those advantages that I quoted.
And talking about this pilot, about real estate developers who participated in the operation, can you understand the incentives why this should be made, based on blockchain? But for example, how they chose the object for tokenization? Are there some real estate objects that fit more for this format maybe than the others?
So on this part, I can say that I was mostly lucky. Those real estate developers, they had 2 things in mind. Like I said, test the product because they wanted to use it in a bigger scale. And the second one is to see the promises, like I said. But why did they do that? They did that because like 4 years ago, they bought a house in south of France that was already sold. And it's been like 4 years that those guys are like crypto addicts and they're blockchain believers, because they would say, with certification of information, this would have never happened with blockchain. And so I found those guys, and the fit was so quick, and actually they brought the ANA use case, and actually to be honest, the ANA use case was like the 4 or 5 that we had in the pipe, and they brought it to us, and we said, okay, this is the first one we need to do. We need to do this because in France, the real estate industry, well, all over the world, the real estate industry has been working the same for so many years. It's a very conservative, it used to be a very conservative industry, but now people want things to change. They want democratization and access to those real estate.
And how did the preparatory process go? Because you're the first one to execute this type of deal in France. How long did it take you to just get the whole process ready?
Well, it took us 2 months, but basically the legal part took 3 to 1 month to set up and structure. We were already working with law firms before Anna was brought to us. So our smart contract has been audited by a law firm. They had been audited technically, so to speak. We were ready using a V1 of the product, and so we set it up everything, and we communicated only once the achievement was done.
And talking about France as a region, how does blockchain and specifically tokenization and tokenization of real estate look there from the legal perspective?
France is very fast forward in terms of regulation. I would say Europe wants to take the lead on blockchain. We've seen it with BaFin giving us 2 prospectus. The IMF has drafted laws for utility tokens and security tokens at the same time. And so there is a regulatory framework. The regulatory framework has 2 components. The first one is the authorization, the recognition of a registered and a transaction on the blockchain as the same as on the legacy framework. And the second one was to define legally what is blockchain and what's its legal power. And it comes back to the timestamping I told you. The timestamping of the blockchain has the same value of the signature of an expert accountant or a lawyer. Yeah. So any new regulatory opportunity gives a business opportunity. And so once we do this with the blockchain, when we do a transaction, when we update a shares ledger state, it has the same effect as the lawyer. And the lawyer actually takes time because he has to do the KYC, prepare the documents, summon everyone to come sign, wait for everyone to sign. While in the product that we've built, the KYC takes only 16 seconds. And the templates are generated. The lawyer can customize those templates, and then it's sent to everyone, and they can all sign and subscribe. Mm-hmm. So it's a really optimized process. So nothing new. We're not disintermediating any lawyers or notaries here. In the contrary, we're optimizing their time.
And one of the major goals that's stated that EquiSafe plans to achieve on a general scale is to make everyone, to enable everyone to be able to hold and transfer financial assets as easy as you could buy a book on Amazon. So how do you see this, changing generally the infrastructure for the future of finance, the future of world, and how this can be achieved step by step?
Hard question. Well, let's start with the vision that we have. It should be as simple as it is to buy a book on Amazon, to buy securities. This comes from my own experience. Basically, before I started EquiSafe, I was a strategy consultant at Accenture, and I wanted to buy an apartment in Paris. And first of all, I'm really bad in real estate. I'm a tech guy, so that's really not my a thing that I do well. I don't know how to choose. It takes time. You need to have money. It involves multiple people that have their own agendas, and so the process was hateful. And I said, okay, forget about it. I don't want to do it. I don't have time to do it. And the process takes like 3 to 6 months. And what's beautiful with blockchain is like blockchain redistribute the cards. And by redistributing the card, I mean, let's change the strategy. I don't want to choose a whole apartment for myself. Let's find promoters or real estate developers or real estate asset managers who wants to liquidate their assets. And let me just buy a piece of it, because I'd rather, if I have 10,000 euro, I'd rather put them than like go for a mortgage or something like that. and it's more sequential. I mean, and sequence is a good thing because it gives you the choice, the time to diversify, and while having the easiness to invest. And we've seen it. I mean, in other industries, you have Airbnb is like about sharing apartments. Tesla wants to share our cars. We're sharing the movies on Netflix. It's all about sharing economy that we're tending for. And I think finance and democratization of finance, which was not the case, which has never been the case, is definitely the next step. It's the last industry to get affected by the digital transformation, and I think it's going to be the biggest change.
And you just mentioned democratization. One of the arguments that is often heard on the market these days that for example, retail investors who don't have access to participate in the majority of securities offerings are not allowed to do so on purpose because they're not sophisticated. They cannot presumably make investment decisions.
Wise investment decisions.
Why? Yes, but so how do you think this can be tackled? Is it education or some kind of intermediary who would choose good deals for retail investors? What do you think?
So indeed, the full regulatory framework, specifically in finance, is not necessarily adapted to what we're trying to do. In a bigger scale, of course, you have distribution method that allows you to address specific investors and not others. But let's be pragmatic again. In real estate, if you want to access directly to the assets, here you can, the assets are never, well, most of the assets are beyond 8 million. And 8 million euro is the exemption case in France. It's the highest threshold in Europe. It's 8 million. There is 5 countries that share this among Germany. Most of the other ones are at 5. But with 8 million, the prospectus exemption, which allows you to do a general solicitation, so access retail investors, is enough for a lot of real estate deals. Because for 2 reasons. The first one is that since the technology is very young, the transactions are not big because it's proof of concept, and proof of concept addressing different kind of securities, try to address different problems and try to solve them. So 8 million is a good first step. And also in real estate, with 8 million, you can do a lot of things. So it's win-win for both the issuers and the retail investors, specifically in real estate.
I think I have one last question for today. In your opinion, what will happen in the industry? What we should look after during the next 6 months and then in 2020? What's about to happen and what are EquiSafe's plans for this time?
So I think the big players are going to come in. Stock exchanges, Euronext acquired 20% of Tokeny. Other exchanges are trying to make a move. So I think within the 6 months, the next 6 months, exchanges are going to do moves, and also banks are going to do some moves, specifically custodians. We've been talking with some big bank custodians. They have an offering, a blockchain offering for like a while. They're waiting for the right time. And I think the industry is starting to maturing to understand what are the value proposition, how it works, that it can be made simple. So I think banks and exchanges are gonna signal themselves that they're working on tokenization. Probably they're gonna work with their open innovation centers, so with startups. We've been talking with those guys, so I can tell you that it's happening. And then, so the next stage for us is definitely to go and talk with those people and try to find synergies, because we have definitely 1 year and a half technological advance, and so they're going to leverage startup like us, like Tokeny was leveraged by Euronext. We're going to see that more and more in the UK and also in Germany.
Bilal, thank you very much for being with us, for sharing your knowledge and your plans. We're really excited to look what's next for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. This was Value Tokenized. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions to our today's guest, please leave them in comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Twitter for shorter versions.